This is the Bad Table challenge. This table has absolutely no semantic markup. We can't change the markup directly. It probably came from some sort of third-party library or was generated through server-side rendering, and we just don't have that control. So our goal today is to style it to look like what design wants, this image here, okay? To prove the point, here's our table. We can't change anything in here, and it is just table row on table row of TDs. No THs, no T head, no T body, no T foot. There's a random row in here just before the subtotal. That's kind of interesting. That's probably what's causing this extra gap in here. Depending on the contrast on your screen, there is a huge gap between these two rows that doesn't occur in any of the others. So we're going to clean this up. We have a couple options. We could use JavaScript. We could manipulate it and change it to be more semantic or to add some class names, stuff like that. We don't need to do any of that because we have advanced CSS selectors. We aren't going to use anything too crazy today, but with just some more advanced CSS selectors that aren't classes, we should be able to get this to look like the image down here. Okay, so the first one is that empty cell. Okay, we can get rid of that really fast just by going empty and saying display none. And what that does is it hides any row that is empty. Now, there is a question about what empty means. Okay, if we look up here, we can see that the tags are touching. That is empty. If we have a return in here, you'll see the gap come back. There it is, right there. And that's because it's not empty. It actually has a node in there. If you were doing JavaScript and you wanted to check the children inside of this TR right now, you would see that it had a empty node, right? It might be a string, it could be just characters, might not be an element. So anything that where the tags are not touching, there's something in there. They have to be like this, not the other way around. Because we started here, we have access to that empty, so that's great news. Going to the next thing, we have this row. There is some helpful stuff here. It's 60% black for the text color. Background is 10% black, font size. We can get all that done using another selector called first child. And the first child targets anything that is a first child. It doesn't look for the first child of TR. It says, hey TR, are you the first child? And in this case, if we go all the way back up, we have table, and this TR is the first child. So we can go in here and add our color. Whoops, not like that. Color. And because we want it to be 60% black, we're going to use HSLA. And that's going to be 0%, 0%, 0.6. Get some cheat on here with copy and pasting. We're going to change this one to background color, just like this, and that is 0.1. So that's matching up pretty nice. We need it to be font size of 0.9 em. That's what the code says up here, 0.9 em. We can see that that's not right. It is font weight bold and text transform uppercase to get it all sorted. We will worry about the right alignment in a few seconds here. If we jump to the bottom is also bold. So using the same technique, we can go TR last child, same thing as first child. It just says, hey, are you the last child of the table? Yeah, I am. Okay. Let's go font weight bold. And so that's nice and bold, which is exactly how we want it. If we go down further, we can start to see some of the other stuff in here. So we have that alignment, we have this text should be underneath and a little bit smaller, and any negative number should be 100, should be firebrick. That's up here, firebrick. So we can start targeting the rows or the table cells to do this. We can't really do it on the row, but we need to do it on the table cell. So starting with the alignment, we're going to go last child, TD last child, just like we did with the row, which says, hey, are you the last child in the row? Why, yes, I am. Okay, text align right. You do right, and there we go. Moving down, we have the extra pineapple bit, which is underneath. Now, for this one, we don't need any special sectors. We actually have this handy span in here. So we can actually just use that directly. We don't always need something fancy to get the job done, okay? Span has a font size of 0.8 and a color of HSLA 0%, 0%, and 0.5, like this. Makes it small, makes it nice. In order to get it to the next line, we can just go display block, and that part is done. Wonderful. The negative 100, we have that next. That's actually hidden away in this data attribute. So for each dollar value, we have a data price. Data price of negative 100. That sounds like something that we can target. Because it's an attribute, we can use something called an attribute selector. Those show up in square brackets, and we just type the attribute name itself, price. And this works kind of like regular expressions. A lot of the syntax is kind of the same. It all happens before the equal sign. So if we put the caret in here, in regular expressions, that means the start of whatever line you're searching or whatever thing you're searching. In this case, it's the start of the attribute. If we put the dollar in there, that would be the end of the attribute. In this case, it would be the 0. But we want, and there are a few more. In this case, we just want the start, so that works for us, and we just want to see if it has a minus sign. If it does, color is firebrick, just like that, which is great because if any of these other rows get a negative, then it will highlight that as well. Hopefully any generated code would continue to have that same sort of system. So there it is. We are so close to done. We just need to take care of these 3 bottom rows here. They are transparent. We could use last child here for the total, but we don't have a second last child or a third last child. Instead, we need to use a more general term called nth last child. There's also an nth child which starts at the beginning. And what nth last child does is it counts from the bottom up. So if we go nth last child 1, that would be the same as last child, honestly, okay? Nth last child 2 would be tax. Nth last child 3 would be subtotal. So that seems to work. We can just go and use that right over here. We're going to put it below here. So tr nth last child of 1, and right here we can go background color of transparent. That should knock that right out. It totally does. We can cheat a little bit more copy pasting, just like this. This one can be 2, this one can be 3, and now they are all done. Not quite there. Also, a lot of extra code here. Nth last child gives us a way to do some math inside of these parentheses. It's kind of like algebra. If you remember x plus 3 in school a long time ago, we're doing the same thing, but this time we're using an n instead of the x. So for this, we could actually go n, get rid of these 3, and n would be everything. So starting at the bottom, it starts at 0, 0 doesn't exist. 1 would be total, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to the top. Minus n, on the other hand, would start at the bottom, and it would go 0, no, nothing there. Minus 1, nothing there. Minus 2, nothing there. So that's kind of what we want. We want nothing. Not quite nothing, but we want it to roll into the negatives as fast as possible. We only want to target 3. So from here, we can add something to this. If we add a 1, you'll see that total goes away again. 2, 3. And now we are right where we need to be with making those transparent. And the way this works, again, just like way back in school, plug the numbers in. So 0 plus 3 is 3. 1, 2, 3, that's subtotal. Minus 1 plus 3 would be 2. 1, 2 is tax. Minus 2 plus 3 would be 1, so that's total. Minus 3 plus 3 is 0. There is no 0. Minus 4 plus 3 is minus 1, and so on. We don't have any minuses, so it just stops. Okay? So we are there. We have this table working. We are just about done. We need these border radiuses, and we need to make this just a little bit tighter. You notice how it's not quite there? Okay? So we can change the padding. The padding is way down here on the TD. It is 1M all around. We can go and make that just a little bit better by going with this and get the TD inside of it. And now our padding can be 0.5 top bottom, and let's keep the 1M for the sides so that everything lines up nice. Okay. The border radius, that has to happen on the TD for very basic reasons. We can't do any sort of borders on table rows unless we change this to border collapse. And we don't want that because we have this really nice spacing in here. So in order to keep that all the way that we want, we're not going to change that. Instead, we're just going to go to the TD and we're going to add a border radius. Now, if we just go in here and add border radius of 5 pixels, you're going to see right away that it doesn't quite work right. There's something happening in the middle. So we need a little bit more specific rule. We can do that by changing this to top left, top right, bottom left. And that way it only rounds out that. We still need this, this left side over here. So we can do the same thing right above it. Just grab the first child like we did with other things and border radius of top right, top left, bottom left, bottom right. And now we have all of that stuff locked in, dialed in, really, really nice. Okay. So this is it. We used a lot of slightly more advanced selectors, a lot of pseudo-classes in here. Pseudo-classes are just so powerful. They give us the opportunity to target things without needing to add classes to our markup. I like them a lot. Attribute selectors, I use these all the time. They are very, very useful. We didn't need to do anything fancy with a span. And there are others too. Like, as an example, you might have heard that CSS in JS is scoped. That is not entirely accurate. CSS in JS is namespaced, but not scoped. If it was scoped, I would not be able to target the next item or any of the next items really. So there goes my row, my image, my horizontal rule. They're all gone because I targeted something outside of my container. And what this is the adjacent, this is the general child selector. So it selects anything that comes after the table. You might think, where would that be useful? Why would I try to break my CSS in JS? Well, over here on a very old project, I did exactly that, by creating these cut-ins, okay? And I did a few different styles just to brainstorm it with the designer. But I can change this to something like red, and it will change not only the container, but this cut-in, which is actually part of the next container. So in CSS, it's all the way down here, and it uses not that general selector, but the adjacent child selector. The adjacent child selector, unlike the tilde, the general child selector, takes only the next one, not all of the next ones. So very useful stuff just by learning those more advanced selectors, okay? To recap, we have this still unsemantic table. It's still unsemantic. It's still possibly not accessible. It'll read, it just won't read in a nice way to accessible technology. We prettied it up. We made it look right. We added visual semantics without actually adding real semantics. We could have done this with JavaScript, but by using just a few advanced selectors that aren't classes, we were able to get all of this done. So that's pretty amazing. If a candidate is able to do this without too much research, I guess, right? If they can at least describe the basics of getting this done using some of these advanced selectors, I would say that's a pretty positive win in their favor. So give this a try. Let me know what you think. This has been the Bad Table Challenge.